Hi, I'm Michael Storsley. I'm the superintendent of Grays Lake High School District 127.
I'm Michael Zellick, Associate Superintendent for Grays Lake High School District 127.
This is a presentation we've done over the last couple of years just to communicate about our levy, how it's calculated, and why we do it. So first of all, what really is the levy's purpose? Obviously, it's to support our students and our programs in District 127, and you can see there off to the right our portrait of a graduate, and at the top is our mission statement. We empower all students to launch their futures through relevant, engaging, authentic learning. In order to do that, that requires us to do things differently than they've been done in the past. Education today looks very different than it looked even 10 years ago, much less 20 or 30 years ago. Property taxes continue to be our most reliable revenue source, and that supports a wide range of instructional course offerings, a wide range of athletics and activities, our fine arts programs, among other things. It really means we're supporting the programs, the tools, and facilities needed for a 21st century learning environment. In general, that means supporting our education technology infrastructure, such as a robust Wi-Fi coverage and learning management systems, online tools. It also means different types of course offerings that require different types of equipment. For example, our Project Lead the Way classes need equipment and supplies to include robotics and 3D printing. Our Mobile Makers course supports students learning programming in Swift, and that's the Apple iOS programming language. It requires additional equipment and computer labs. Those are just a couple of examples. In our more traditional core classes, math, science, English, and social studies, teachers are using project-based methods, and we're increasing the number of blended learning opportunities. This means that students and teachers are using technology to allow for more flexible learning situations and allowing students more options in demonstrating how they learn. Quite honestly, it models the way we operate in the post-high school adult world. That means we're constantly looking to revamp all of our physical spaces as well. Classrooms, hallways, common areas. We want them to become readily available, flexible learning environments. Furthermore, we just need to be constantly vigilant in maintaining the buildings overall. We have one building that was built in 1947, and as you can imagine, that needs constant upkeep. Our other building, built in 2004, may seem relatively new, but it requires significant upkeep to stay ready for our students to learn.
On this slide, you'll see the 2019-2020 operating revenue sources. And as you can see, our largest revenue source is local property taxes at 67%. Last year, it was at 71%. We believe that's part of the evidence-based funding model, which we are receiving 23%. And it has increased over the last couple of years, relieving some of the pressure on the local property taxes.
Yeah, and we're very grateful for the state's attempt to really even out some of the inequities in school funding. So the evidence-based funding, the amount we receive from the state has increased, but as you can see, local property taxes still form the large bulk of our revenue. So before we go into the numbers, we just wanted to go through a few principles on how the levy is calculated. These aren't numbers that we're just making up off the top of our head or pulling out of thin air. A school district's levy will change each year based on three variables. The first one, and probably the biggest, is CPI. We increase the request we make to keep pace with inflation. In 2019, that's only 1.9%. In addition, we have new property. New property is again, property within the district boundaries that has not been assessed until this levy year and needs to be captured and brought into our levy. And third, any change in the district's annual debt schedule. We are still paying off the Grays Lake North campus. Our bonds are coming off and decreasing fairly rapidly. We'll discuss that in just a few moments, though.
Yeah, and one point I do want to make is that we do get the question quite often on why are you not just asking for CPI or the 1.9%? Actually, the reason why we are asking for more than CPI is because of the new property. If we don't ask for more than CPI, we will not receive the new property taxes from those new properties. And if we don't ask for it, that would definitely give them a property tax break and does not help in the next following year to be able to distribute that amongst the rest of the taxpayers. And as Dr. Storsley has said, even the debt schedule, when we see the numbers that are going to be in the next couple of slides, that can actually even change the percentage that we would have to be asking for to pay our debt service schedule.
So CPI, new property, and the debt schedule. You see how that will play out in our calculation.
So calculating the new extension base, so you can see that it's 2018 extension base adjusted for inflation, which would be CPI of 1.9%. And that creates our new extension base for 2019, which would be the $39,535,030. Now bringing into the new property, we would have to go ahead and again modify our request from the 1.9% to ask for more to be able to again capture the tax extension for new property. So you take the extension base divided by the EAV, and that creates a new rate, and that is the tax rate. That tax rate is 3.644%. You multiply that by the 4.5 million, and you can see that the district receives an additional $163,970.
And in that calculation, there are a couple of assumptions made. The 4.5 million, that's an estimate from the county, and the EAV, the 1,085 million, again, that's an estimate as well. So this number, the 163,000, isn't exactly solid, but we're doing the best we can using the estimates that we have.
So then with the debt service, you can see $8,198,824. The prior year was over $11 million. So what that does create is, again, you add those three up as far as the dollars go, and that gives us our total estimated extension for 2019 at $47,897,824.
Okay, so that 47 million, which you saw in the previous slide in red, is there in the top left. And again, that's the expected final extension based on our EAV estimate and our new property estimate.
And you see our request is actually for $48,631,121. Again, District 127 is anticipating that it will only receive about 1.48%, including the bonds, with the CPI of 1.9. Again, there's a couple reasons for this. We mentioned the new property. We have to make sure that we capture that. And then the other is that as we're going through this process, I need to take a look at being able to move some dollars between different funds to be able to balance each one of those funds out.
So across the bottom there, you'll see the 2018 levy. Those are actual dollars from 2018, $46,794,000. The 2019 request, you see there in blue, and again, as Mike mentioned, that's slightly above the 47 million. Again, that's based on some of the estimates, assuming we're not going to receive all of that. But if you take those two numbers and just look at the increase there, 48 million divided by the 46 million is an increase of roughly 3.93%. But again, we do not anticipate that will be the actual levy, the 48 million. That 3.93% will likely be a bit less.
So here we have our debt service schedule, and you can see that our payments are going down and eventually will be paid off. We're looking at the final payoff of February 1st in budget year 2021-22, and that will actually be the final payment for the bonds that we have outstanding at this time.
So as Dr. Zellick mentioned, last year the bond amount was right around $11 million. The 8.1 million that we discussed earlier is right here. Next year will be slightly less than that, and then those bonds are completely paid off.
And we were very happy last year to receive the property tax relief grant in 2018, which the district abated $2.9 million. And at that time, we were 12th on the list. In 19, we did apply for the grant once again, and we're anticipating that would be $2.3 million. That puts us 40th on the list at this time. And if we do receive the grant, again, it would be actually abated for 2 years, and that's a new requirement that they had put into this particular grant.
Yeah, and just the way this grant works very roughly is the state comes out with a list of school districts who are most in need of property tax relief. Again, last year we were 12th. This year we're a little bit further down on the list. And depending on what districts above us apply for that grant or don't apply for that grant, hopefully they will be able to fund our grant request, even though we're a little bit further down on the list.
And last year on about a $220,000 home, between the bonds being paid off or reducing the payment, along with the abatement, was probably about $120 saving for that property owner.
So the last two slides, we mentioned the bonds and we mentioned the property tax relief grant. We absolutely understand how our community supports our schools and overall, the value that our community puts on our schools in having a great school system. And we absolutely understand the burden on the local taxpayer. We're doing what we can to ease that burden as much as we can and still provide a great system for all of our students and all of our residents. So that's the end of our presentation. Thanks very much. You have our contact information there, or go to d127.org. If you need to get a hold of us, we'd be happy to answer any questions at any time.
We thank you, and thank you for your support as well.